Houston, Texas, 1917. Population 130,000, including 30,000 African Americans, the largest black population of any Texas city. Houston covered a total of 32 square miles on either side of Buffalo Bayou, and the town was on the threshold of a period of rapid growth. The citizens shared a sense of excitement about Houston's future. With 13 banks, 365 factories employing 10,000 workers, and annual exports of more than 3 million bales of cotton, Houston proudly claimed to be the largest inland port cotton market in the world. White and black citizens lived in two separate worlds. In fact, it was the law. Black Houstonians had their own saloons and restaurants, 4 movie houses, 3 weekly newspapers, and a separate professional baseball team called the Houston Black Buffaloes.
It was a very, very difficult time and place to live, never mind work and recreate and raise families. And this riot, this mutiny, is a manifestation of those social conditions.
After the Civil War, most Southern states passed what were known as Jim Crow laws, creating separate arrangements for blacks and whites in schools, on public transportation, in restaurants, hotels, theaters, public parks, even doctors' offices. Some form of these laws remained in Houston and throughout the South until the early 1960s. It is difficult for most of us to imagine what things were like way back when, but Thelma Scott Bryant, Hazel Young, and Henrietta Wells lived through it.
The white man expected you to stay in your place, they say, and we knew how to stay in our place rather than, cause a lot of trouble. That was just the way it had to be at that time. You got out your place, well, then they put you back in it.
No matter how intelligent you were, if you were black, you didn't get any kind of recognition because white people resented smart niggas, as they say. Yeah. In fact, they went out of the way to show you didn't have any, they didn't respect you. I thought I was supposed to sit on the back of the bus. That was a part of growing up in the South. You knew your place, and your place was in the back of the bus.
I resented the segregation on the streetcars because when I came back from college, I resented it more. I had to get up and give the workers, the street workers and the construction workers, my seats. And they were dirty people. I thought they needed a bath. They didn't smell good. But I had to get up and give them my seat. And I didn't like the fact that I couldn't try on clothes. I couldn't try on shoes. I couldn't try on hats. I might buy something and take it home and it didn't look right, but I couldn't return it. I had to keep it. There were so many things like that that were demeaning.
I think most people today honestly have a lack of appreciation for how truly awful race relations were at this time period. You're talking about the very depths of white supremacy, which were in many ways worse than slavery. This was a volcano ready to erupt.
The police were pretty tough in that area. They loved to chase prostitutes, crap shooters, and they'd had a tendency to shoot at blacks to scare them and to show their virility.
The new reform-minded mayor had begun some major changes in the Houston Police Department. He appointed a new chief, Clarence Brock, who had been the park superintendent and had no law enforcement experience, a move that met with strong resentment and resistance on the force.
What Brock was trying to do was professionalize the police, trying to bring discipline, trying to make officers look like police in terms of their dress and demeanor, and I mean, they just laughed at him, and he didn't have the force of personality to do it.
On the surface, things seemed relatively peaceful, but there was an undercurrent of prejudice that could flare up in an instant, and sometimes with overwhelming force. And into this complex racial climate came the men of the 24th Regiment.
At the beginning of the war, the U.S. government established a number of National Guard training sites across the United States. There were 16 of them. And the cities bid for them because they realized that this would be a great deal of federal money, construction money, and all coming into the communities.
Houston leaders pursued their share of this business, and the Army agreed to build a training base for National Guard troops being recalled to active duty, a base to be known as Camp Logan on the eastern edge of what is now Memorial Park. To guard the construction site, the Army decided to use members of the 24th Infantry, also known as the Buffalo Soldiers, a name given them in respect for their skill and bravery by the Native Americans whom they fought against in Texas and Indian territories. They had earned this respect again and again through over 4 decades of service, including the pursuit of Pancho Villa in Mexico under General Blackjack Pershing, and serving in Cuba with Teddy Roosevelt during the Spanish-American War.
The 4 Buffalo Soldier regiments, the 9th and 10th Cavalry, and the 24th and 25th Infantry, they served out west. You know, they built camps, forts, railroads, delivered the mail, strung telegraph wires, charting the land. They did all of these types of things. I mean, without the Buffalo Soldiers, the westward movement would have been delayed 50 years.
Corporal Jesse Moore of Louisiana was among the black soldiers sent to Houston. Angela Holder is his great-niece.
And I was about 6 years old, and I saw this picture in my Aunt Lovey's house, and I said, well, who is that? She said, that's my brother Jesse. And I said, well, what happened to him? I wanted to know all these whys and wins.
Later in junior high school, Angela Holder saw a picture in an American history book that prompted her to ask more questions about her great-uncle.
One thing I remember my mother was saying that he may have been in the service before, and that he was a bugler, and that he wanted to go back into the service, but his mother didn't want him to do it, that there might have been some type of premonition that something bad was going to happen to him.
24-year-old Private T.C. Hawkins was from a large family and grew up in North Carolina. He was one of 7 children, the grandson of a minister. He was raised in a close-knit religious family.
My aunt told me that my uncle was a great person, that he was a really super guy. And you had a group of colored soldiers, as they preferred to be called, that were proud to serve their country, that were proud to participate in the military.
And when the soldiers came, they came to Antioch. All the young ladies and the little ones too were admiring those soldiers from Chicago who came to our church. I was 12 years old looking up at soldiers who were looking better than anybody I had ever seen. I was trying to be seen too. Those are our heroes.
We did not know any soldiers personally, except the ladies were all trying to marry a soldier. I have a soldier boyfriend.
While the black community was excited, many white Houstonians were alarmed to hear black troops were stationed in Houston. Outside the black community, the soldiers quickly encountered a level of disrespect and discrimination they had seldom experienced before.
Well, to send soldiers from the north to a deeply southern ingrained town was just like waving a red flag. They resented those soldiers who looked better and had more evidently on the ball than the white people did. It was a situation that was tense.
So you have a town like Houston. It's more southern than western, although we consider it to be in the west. But the attitude at the time, the Jim Crow laws, the segregation, all of these things were going on, and you mix that with proud black men in blue uniforms, and you have a tragedy waiting to happen.
There were racial incidents from the very beginning, and that is to say that this came from various parts of the community. The white construction workers gave them a difficult time. The police of Houston particularly were felt to be vindictive against the soldiers. And might seem to be somewhat ironical, but the streetcar conductors were also considered to be